Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, it really helps.
Okay, so you've likely seen the news buzzing about El Chapo's family. Reports say they've entered the U.S.
That's right. We're talking about Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's family, the infamous Sinaloa Cartel leader convicted a few years back.
Exactly. So the big question is, what's really going on here? Why now? And what does this arrival mean, especially thinking about his conviction and, well, everything's still happening with the cartel?
It's a significant development, potentially. To really get it, we kind of need to step back first. Look at El Chapo's conviction, the sheer size of his empire.
Right.
And then connect that to why his family might be showing up now on U.S. soil.
So that's what this deep dive is about. We want to cut through all the chatter for you. We've looked at a bunch of sources reporting from the LA Times, News Nation, Associated Press, the New York Times, plus official info from ICE and a detailed briefing document.
Our goal is basically to pull out the key pieces of information, the important bits, so you can get a solid grasp of the situation quickly without getting lost in, all the details.
Let's start with the conviction then. That seems like the foundation.
Definitely. So February 12, 2019, Brooklyn, New York. That's when the verdict came down. Guilty on everything.
And the main charge, the big one.
Leading a continuing criminal enterprise. I mean, that alone covered 26 separate drug violations and even a murder conspiracy charge. It was comprehensive.
And that led straight to a mandatory life sentence, no parole.
Mandatory life underscores just how massive his crimes were considered.
Bringing him to trial, that wasn't simple either, was it? It took a whole coalition of agencies.
Oh, absolutely. You had ICE's Homeland Security Investigations, HSI from New York and Arizona, the DEA, U.S. Marshals, the FBI, NYPD, a real multi-agency push to get him extradited and convicted.
And the trial itself, what did it actually show? What evidence came out?
Well, it laid bare the whole operation. You had testimony from 14 cooperating witnesses, people who were inside.
Wow, 14.
Yeah. Plus, documented seizures, we're talking over 130,000 kilos of cocaine and heroin.
Yeah.
And weapons. AK-47s, even a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. Seriously. Along with ledgers, texts, videos, photos, and years of intercepted calls and messages. It painted a really detailed picture of his, 25-year run.
The scale of the Sinaloa Cartel's logistics under him sounds just, well, staggering.
It really was. They weren't just smuggling, they were masters of it. Using submarines, carbon fiber planes, trains with secret compartments.
And those tunnels, right, the cross-border tunnels.
Exactly. Those infamous tunnels. And remember that bust, 7 tons of cocaine hidden inside jalapeno cans.
I do remember that. It just shows the audacity, the ingenuity.
And their reach inside the U.S. was vast. They weren't just hitting border states. They were supplying Arizona, Atlanta, Chicago, L.A., Miami, New York.
Yeah.
Basically distributing nationwide.
And moving the money back must have been a huge operation, too.
Billions in drug money flowing back to Mexico.
Yeah.
A massive, complex money laundering system running parallel to the drug trafficking.
And violence was obviously key to maintaining control. The trial touched on that, too.
Oh, heavily. The use of sicarios hitmen was widespread. Hundreds of murders, kidnappings, acts of torture in Mexico to enforce control, eliminate rivals.
Some of the testimony was brutal, wasn't it?
Horrific. Descriptions of beatings leaving people like ragdolls, shootings, even burying people alive. Fear was absolutely a core part of their business strategy.
And he wasn't just relying on brute force, right? There was sophisticated tech involved, too.
Yes, that's a key point. He spent $1 million setting up a custom encrypted communications network. Encrypted phones, special apps.
$1 million just on comms.
Just on comms. It let him talk securely with associates in Colombia, Ecuador, Canada, the U.S., trying to stay ahead of law enforcement wiretaps. Shows their level of investment and sophistication.
And the weapons cache went beyond just operational needs, didn't it?
It did. Authorities seized, I think, over 40 AK-47s in one go in El Paso, all meant for him. Plus grenades, that RPG we mentioned.
And his personal collection.
Yeah, that spoke volumes too. A gold-plated AK-47, diamond-encrusted handguns. It's about projecting power, impunity. You need serious firepower to run an operation like that, of course.
But none of this works without protection, without corruption.
Absolutely critical. The trial exposed how deep that went. Millions paid in bribes. Local cops, prison guards, state officials, high-ranking military officers, even politicians.
So they were buying information,
Warnings, protection, help moving shipments, looking the other way. That corruption was essential grease for the entire machine.
And hiding the money wasn't just about stuffing cash in bags.
No, although they did plenty of that, like that $1.26 million cash seizure back in '89 in Arizona.
Yeah.
But they also got more sophisticated. Shell companies.
Like legitimate-seeming businesses.
Exactly. A juice company, a fish flour company, front businesses set up purely to launder the drug profits, make it look clean. It was a truly global, multifaceted criminal enterprise.
Okay, so that's the backdrop, this massive, violent, sophisticated operation, and its leader now serving life.
Right, so given all that, when you hear that suddenly, just this past May, about 17 members of his family crossed into the U.S., it definitely gets your attention.
17. That's not just one or two people slipping across. Where did this happen?
At the San Ysidro border crossing, that's the main one connecting Tijuana and San Diego.
And this is confirmed.
Confirmed by Mexico's own security chief, Omar Garcia Harfuch. He specifically mentioned El Chapo's ex-wife, Griselda Lopez Perez.
She's the mother of Ovidio, right? And Joaquin Guzmán López.
Correct. She was there along with nephews, nieces, apparently a grandson, a daughter, a son-in-law. Significant group.
And the circumstances of their crossing sound, well, unusual.
Very. Reports mention them carrying over $70,000 in cash and being met by FBI agents.
Met by the FBI.
Met by the FBI. Some reports even claim there was a sniper providing overwatch. This wasn't a typical asylum claim, you know. It suggests something prearranged, carefully managed.
Which immediately makes you ask why? Why now? And the connection everyone's making is to his son, Ovidio Guzmán López.
Exactly. Ovidio. Remember him. Arrested back in 2019, then famously released after cartel pressure.
Right, the Culiacanazo. López Obrador ordered his release.
Then he was rearrested in January 2023, a really bloody operation, and extradited to the U.S. in September last year. He's facing major drug trafficking charges in Chicago.
Okay, so what's the link between Ovidio in a Chicago jail and his family crossing in San Diego?
Well, the reports are that Ovidio is planning to flip his plea, change from not guilty. There's apparently a key court hearing set for July 9th in Chicago.
And Mexico's security chief, Garcia Harfuch, he essentially confirmed the link.
He said the family's entry is evidently his word due to a negotiation or an offer from the U.S. Department of Justice to Ovidio. That's pretty direct.
So the speculation is Ovidio cooperates, maybe testifies against others?
Right. Potentially testify in other major drug cases, maybe involving other cartel figures, in exchange for a lighter sentence for himself.
And protection for his family, which would explain them being allowed into the U.S., met by the FBI.
Precisely. It fits that narrative. The timing, the circumstances, the official comments out of Mexico, it all points towards some kind of deal being struck, or at least in the works.
But it's a huge risk for Ovidio, isn't it? Cooperating against the cartel, especially with other family members, presumably still in Mexico.
It's an enormous gamble. The cartels, especially Sinaloa, have long memories and a brutal history of retaliation against informants and their families. It raises questions about how credible his cooperation could be, or what guarantees the U.S. could even offer.
And how has the Mexican government officially reacted to this, besides Garcia Harfuch's comments?
Well, the current president, Claudia Sheinbaum, said her government wasn't notified beforehand by the U.S. DOJ about the family entering. She's apparently seeking clarification from Washington.
So maybe not full coordination there. Or perhaps plausible deniability.
It certainly raises questions about the communication channels. Garcia Harfuch also made a point of saying the previous U.S. administration, impliedly the Trump administration, has to share information with Mexican prosecutors, suggesting that maybe isn't happening now.
So potential friction between the U.S. and Mexico over this.
Or at least a lack of transparency from Mexico's perspective. It's a sensitive issue, dealing with the family of such a notorious figure, especially if it involves a deal.
This whole situation also seems to be stirring things up inside the Sinaloa Cartel itself, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. There were already reports, unconfirmed, but persistent, that Ovidio himself might have helped arrange the recent arrest of Ismael El Mayo Zambada.
El Mayo, the co-founder, El Chapo's longtime partner.
The very same. If Ovidio did play a role in taking down El Mayo, possibly as part of this deal, that's huge. It would explain a lot.
And that would inevitably spark conflict within the cartel.
Exactly. Reports suggest it already has. An internal turf war seems to be brewing, pitting Zambada loyalists against El Chapo's sons, Los Chapitos, including Ovidio.
So Ovidio potentially cooperating, El Mayo potentially arrested partly because of him, and now a fight for control.
It's throwing the cartel's leadership into chaos. And remember, 2 of El Chapo's other sons are still out there, fugitives in Mexico. They're major players in the Chapitos faction.
So what's the U.S. saying officially about all this? About the plea deal, the family?
The U.S. attorney involved, Adam Gordon, was asked about it recently during an announcement about indicting other cartel leaders. He refused to comment directly on Ovidio's plea or the family's arrival.
Keeping close to the vest.
Pretty standard procedure in sensitive negotiations like this.
Nay.
But he did issue a very strong warning directly to the remaining Sinaloa leaders. He said, "You are no longer the hunters, you are the hunted."
A clear message.
A very clear message that deal or no deal with Ovidio, the pressure isn't letting up on the rest of the cartel leadership.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We started with El Chapo's conviction, which really showed the world the sheer scale and brutality of the Sinaloa Cartel.
Right. A massive criminal machine built on drugs, violence, and corruption.
And now, years later, his family's arrival in the U.S. seems very tightly linked to his son Ovidio and a potential plea deal being negotiated with U.S. authorities.
It looks that way. It highlights these really complex, sometimes murky strategies that governments use when they're trying to combat these incredibly powerful transnational cartels.
But there's still a lot we don't know for sure.
Absolutely. What are the exact terms of Ovidio's deal, assuming there is one? What happens to his family now that they're reportedly in the U.S.? Their legal status, where are they?
And the big one, how does this power struggle within Sinaloa play out? Who comes out on top? What does that mean for the drug trade?
All major unanswered questions.
Yeah.
This story is definitely still unfolding.
It really makes you think, though, about these kinds of deals. What's the balance here? You get cooperation against one major figure, maybe dismantle part of an operation.
But the price might be facilitating entry for family members, potentially overlooking their own possible complicity, creating diplomatic ripples.
It's a tough calculation. What does it say about the long game in fighting these massive criminal networks? Is this pragmatism, or does it raise deeper ethical questions? Something to definitely keep thinking about.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.